Hey everyone, the name is Erik Thor and we are live. We are ready. It's time to start today's live stream. My girlfriend is currently out and I'm taking this chance while she's away out with one of her friends to discussing with all of you. I've just had dinner. I've had some veggie meatballs and some pasta. And yeah, I've had a pretty amazing day, if I have to say so myself. I hope you all had good days over there as well. I have been writing non-stop on my next book. It will be 50 to 70 pages on the Enneagram. It will talk about and connect the Enneagram with Neo-Jungian theory. It will show you how you can use it together with Neo-Jungian theory without taking away from the insights gathered by the Enneagram, using the Enneagram strengths and describing traumas and personal growth and personal experience and showing how it fits together with personality type. And the topic of today's live stream is just that, to discuss how your Enneagram type, your personally developed trauma or experience can align with your personality type, can exist in together with your personality type, how it can restrain your personality type from a full expression of yourself as you are, and how it can channel who you are, and how it can influence and show who you are to others in a positive way. So today, let's get some people in here. Let's spread the link around, maybe pass it along to one of your friends. Maybe if you have someone else you want in here, some other personality type maybe that you think should come in, let them know, because the more people we are in here and the more people we are sharing our personal fears, our personal insecurities, I think the better of a discussion we can have. I have only just started truly to find out how each cognitive function expresses and deals with and manages different traumas and experiences. And it's such and it's just the tip of the iceberg, really. I'm only scratching the surface yet, because there is simply so much to learn. There's so much to discover if you really digging into yourself and why you do what you do and how you express yourself. What started me on this quest was, and people have been asking me lately, what is the basis for the subtypes? Why am I talking about type this way? And the core reason is simple. When I was studying neuroscience together with Christian Johnson at Neo-Jungian Typology, we learned that the personality trait was much more dynamic than we thought. We have all fallen into the habit of being purely descriptive, and when we're talking about MBTI, we say the INFJ is like this, the INFJ often feels misunderstood, or the INFJ is often struggling to be understood by other people. The ENFP is often perceived as crazy or dismissed as too creative. We are told that each type is and will always be a certain way. In science, personality traits are discussed with such flexibility. Neuroscience and genetic psychology shows that personality, your brain is wired to way. You are wired to have certain traits that you will prefer to engage in. Perhaps you will be more wired to being a proactive type, or towards being extroverted, or towards using the default mode network. Perhaps you're more wired to using or relying on certain behaviors and doing certain actions. And when you're not engaging in these, when you're an introvert trying to act extroverted, when you're a judging type trying to act like a perceiving type, when you're a feeling type trying to act like a thinking type, your mind is starting to respond to this kind of inner chemical imbalance. It is responding to and using and touching on things that are not native to you, things that you don't necessarily enjoy, things that you don't necessarily like. and it produces warning receptors, and it signals to you to stop doing that. Stop doing that. Stop being like that. It's not fun. You're starting to feel bored. You're starting to feel overwhelmed. You're starting to feel stressed and tense as you do it. But still, you might continue on doing it. Still, you might keep on trying to be like that. In politics, I kept on trying to channel this ESFJ persona. I kept trying to throw myself on stage and to go up there and to talk to people and to be outgoing and to be where people are, to interact with and connect people, to be loud, to be quick, to have style and swag. And so exhausting. It burnt me like down to the core. I would come home with crippling depressions. I would feel so overwhelmed, and I would keep on still the next weekend doing the same thing because I thought it was so important to change the world. It was so important to make a difference and to have an impact. It was so important to cause a change. Important that I was ready to keep myself from feeling peace and calm and comfort. And when you start realizing that, you start realizing that an INFJ can act and pretend to be in any way. That's, like I said, the topic of today's video. What is it you are insecure about in yourself? What is it you're afraid of? Because there are things that we are insecure about, like things that we worry about and things that we think are so important that aren't necessarily that important. And I should talk about this, and I've actually got a video planned in a bit. As the creator archetype, my biggest fear is to not have an impact, to be ignored, to have my ideas discarded, tossed aside, to be told my things and the things I do don't matter. And I should say, I love talking with famous people. I love Erik. He's a great guy. He's a really fun person to hang out with and to chat with. I love his videos and I love the material he makes. I don't know what you're talking about, Sean. All I think is he got insecure. And I think we all get insecure sometimes. And I think especially like if you have like this huge following and this people around you, and if you are on YouTube, and if you've got fans and you've got people around you, I think you're very afraid of haters. And I think I'm just as afraid as he is of being hated on or being attacked or being critiqued for what I do. I can kind of get why that happens, because sometimes I think I overreact a little. Sometimes I think I get a little. Sorry, Sean. I'm thinking you're gonna need a timeout. I think creators, especially all creators, were pretty much the same in all of this. I have been mapping out all of the Jungian main archetypes. The innocent, the lover, the magician, the hero. And I was looking at, in particular, the magician recently because I went to Baby Driver. It's a new movie. It's an upcoming movie. It's about this INTP main character who is this amazing driver. He is the getaway driver. So when when in the movie, he is kind of controlled. He's controlled and forced to drive away criminals, to help people out there who are trying to get away from robberies, to drive away from the police. Because he's so good at driving, he's being used for his abilities. He has this grand super ability, but he is controlled also because of this ability. Criminals want to use his ability for their own purposes, for their own selfish gain. And I've seen this many times with the magician archetype. And I think everyone who has this special skill can at times worry about imperfect execution and can feel quite controlled by this gift or ability, just because they're kind of so good at something. Because they have become truly one of the best of the best. Like the magician archetype, I think the magician archetype is, for example, a person who is really good at race car driving, really good at chess, really good at some special skill or some special ability. The magician is the prodigy in a sense, like the person who naturally knows the answer, who has no sign of struggle at all, who seems to be like almost almighty or otherworldly in their ability. And yeah, he was controlled all throughout the video. People tried to use his abilities for their own selfish gain. And I think that was like his big struggle. How do I make sure I don't become used for this? And all he wanted really was to escape with his true love, of course, and to just leave and just go away, to just run away, to get in the car and drive away, far away, where nobody could haunt him for his or try to control him. And here the question arises, as soon as you start studying Jung's archetypes, you look at the Jester and you go, oh, the Jester, that must be an ENTP or an ESFP perhaps. The performer must be an ESFP. The creator must be an INFP. The lover must be an ISFJ or an ESFJ. We look at the rebel, and we get into this habit of thinking these must have to do with the regular personality types. I think we tap on, and any type can tap on these personality traits. There are INFJ explorers out there. I met several INFJs that make videos about their travels and their experiences, to go out and see the world. And I can, to some extent, relate to the explorer archetype myself. I can relate to the thrill of seeing new things in the world. And I often dream of being an explorer, in a sense. I dream of the time when I can go out and see more of the world. I think to some extent I'm waiting for the day when I will be able to do that more. And my girlfriend is the same. We're talking about these trips we want to take to Finland, to US, to California, to Disney World, to yesterday. What was it? What were we talking about yesterday? We were talking about Israel, Tel Aviv, and the caregiver, like I can relate to the caregiver archetype. I can relate to wanting to do something good for other people, and I can relate to like the innocent archetype sometimes, and wanting to remain pure and good, and being almost utopian at times, or a little too romantic. And like Amy Harvey says, fears are more linked to Enneagram and archetypes than MBTI. But I think that your personality type reflects how you express these fears and how you express these things. And that's the thing. Like for a long while, I thought that I would try to talk about the Enneagram, and I would try to study the Enneagram as if the Enneagram was a cognitive function theory, but it wasn't. And I would say the Enneagram 4 type was going to think like this or act like this or do these things while under the influence of this fear or trauma. But now I realize the Enneagram 4 just has this trauma. The Enneagram 4 is like the person who loves to create, the person who wants to create and to develop. And I think there are multiple cognitive function strategies to this. I think there are INFP creators and INFJ creators. And then I noticed that me personally, I'm driven to creating theoretical content, the new theories and new ideas. And I'm driven to creating and writing in particular. Meet an ESFJ personality type, the things they will create are a little different. If you meet an ISFJ, perhaps they will create instruction videos. If you meet an INFJ, they will create theoretical content. If you meet an INTP, they will create game theory videos. And like the things you want to create and the things you like to create depend on your personality type. With horoscopes, I think there is a lot of problems of for descriptions. Like the horoscopes are written so general that will relate to it almost no matter what it says. Like I think to some extent, if I thought I was born in July, but I was actually born in January for some reason, maybe they got my birth date mixed up, and I was some orphan or something. Then I would have related to being a horoscope born in July. And I practiced, and as a kid, I was really fascinated with horoscopes, and I would study horoscopes, and I would develop them myself, and I would get fascinated with it. But I realized quickly that sometimes I read in too much into the horoscopes that wasn't correct. The interesting thing, and a lot of psychologists have been realizing this, is depending on what time of the year you are born, you're going to develop and be more likely to develop certain personality traits. They notice that soccer players, for example, who are born early in the month, to succeed and to be successful. And this has to do with when schools and teams come up to pick up new players, and they come there and they see the people born early in the year in January who seem much stronger, faster, and more physically developed, or maybe 6 months older, maybe 9 months older than some of the other players. And I think that's true with a lot of the astrology and the horoscopes. And the ENTP's greatest fear, I will speak about the ENTP's primary fears. And the primary fears are found in inferior functions, like in feeling and judging. And for example, ENTPs tend to fear miscommunication a lot, fear saying the wrong thing, or saying something hurtful, or saying something that will be misunderstood. A lot of ENTPs worry that they said something hurtful, or that they accidentally hurt someone with what they said. ENTPs have other fears too. And for example, a common fear for ENXX types is that, for example, ENTPs and ENFJs tend to be afraid of starting up new opportunities and jumping on a new opportunity because they are worried it won't last. What if I go into this relationship and it doesn't last in the future? It won't last in the future. What if I start into this job and then I get fired? What if I start on this project and then I end up quitting on the project a few weeks later? ENTPs and ENTFPs sometimes get blocked by this fear, and it kind of keeps them from jumping on good opportunities. And ENTPs have fears of being late and of like failing to be on time and to do things right sometimes. And fears from IF and from the interpersonal intelligence and from those kinds of things. And sometimes fear ENFPs can sometimes fear from EF, from IT, from introversion and thinking, that something won't be perfect or that something won't be good enough or so on. INTJs fear being judged as inappropriate. A lot of the time, a lot of INTJs worry about being dismissed because of their looks or because of how they are and how they come across, and for like physical things, for how they dress. That's also, I made a video where I talked about how INTJs will often dress provocatively or like in a rebellious or alternative fashion, simply to manage and to say fuck you to that fear. They will say, I'm not gonna give a damn about what other people think anymore, so I'm gonna put on something that shows that I don't give a damn. INTJs fear. INTJs, I would say, fear that they are bad people, that there is something wrong with them. Like the INFPs and ENFPs tend to be so strong in virtue. You look at like Daenerys Targaryen, an ENFP archetype in a sense, the ENFP ruler, really strong in feeling and perceiving. She leads and gets followers simply not because she's a good leader, not because she's a good speaker, not because she is a tactical and logical thinker. She gets followers from feeling and perceiving because she shows and demonstrates virtue and cultural superiority and strong character. Not afraid. She shows that she's strong. She shows that she's capable, and that gets people to follow her. That's how ENFPs lead. INFPs and ESFPs lead because people are simply impressed by how strong and capable and how strong their feats seem to be, how strong their character is. And INTJs, they worry that they don't possess good character, that there's something wrong with their character, or that they are bad guys, or that they are villains, or that they possess some kind of disability, I don't know, that harms their character. And of course they don't. They just sometimes worry about it. I'm glad Cashiap relate a lot to that. Would ENTPs fear leading a normal life and then fading into oblivion? Fear of being forgotten. That's kind of that reminds me of Achilles. Achilles, who was given a choice to die in battle in glory and to be remembered for all time, or to remain at home and be happy in his home village with his wife and die forgotten. I think the person that fears being normal the most is the rebel archetype. And any personality type who is driven to be a rebel is going to sometimes worry about being sucked up by status quo and becoming a part of the mainstream. Like all rebels that I know, that I've interacted with, and I met quite a few in politics, are people that speak up and that are like feared of being corrupted. Like, no, I don't want to compromise. No, I don't want to go along with the flow. They always want something to rebel against, and they always want to rebel against status quo. XXX fear, death. Maybe all the fears bottled down to death. At least death is one of the most final things in life. Jonathan, this is a channel where you can talk about personality traits and archetypes and about insecurities and vulnerabilities. You can still be rebellious while portraying yourself as part of the status quo. What defines a rebel is not wanting to be a part of the status quo. So often you can be another kind of archetype appear or be rebellious, but if you are not attached to being a rebel, then you won't have any problem with being a part of the status quo at times and being some other archetype at times. For example, the performer, the rebel, has two primary flavors. Rebels can sometimes become performers, and sometimes they can be innocents. Uh, can sometimes resemble performers because they are often provocative and expressive. Like, think of Lady Gaga and think of singers that dress up and that strike out themselves from everyone else. Think of people who create this hype and this character around themselves. Some artists are so good at creating headlines for themselves by doing crazy things that the media loves and eats up. And some rebels will tap a lot on being performers, where some performers will tap a lot on being rebels. So a performer might sometimes be rebellious. Performer is a performer, so they're attached to being performers. Enneagram 3 types, and they can resemble rebels at times, but if they don't fear being a part of the status quo, they're not rebels. Geesh girl fears nothing. Fear fears her. Yes. The 6 afraid of the 7. Because the 7, 8, 9. Some people decide to play the game and to go into the system and to work from within to break it apart. And I think those that do will sometimes and constantly worry being sucked up while they do it. They will be working from within the system, and they will also fear getting tangled up in it. And being the kind of person like that, the undercover agent in a sense, is very difficult. It's a very difficult game to play, and they often showcase like characters like that, double agents. Like Scarlett Johansson often plays that role in various agent roles. They do fear being caught up in the status quo and in the game. Do INFJs tend to stay within the status quo a lot, or is that an ISFJ thing? I think INFJs that stay within the status quo or that leave it standing are more likely to be blue subtypes. Blue subtypes are much more inclined to work from within the system to change it rather than to work with outside the system. Personally, as a creator, I work from outside the system. I don't necessarily care so much about the system. I'm more inclined with creating alternatives to it, following it or rebelling against it. When I was in politics, my core goal was to be creative still, because I was still about creating new ideas and new ways to organize society, bring a third way or alternative suggestions. INTP fears. I think an INTP fears is similar to the ENTP in the sense that receiving it's that feeling and judging fear of miscommunication, of saying something rude or hurtful someone what you said. So a lot of INTPs and ENTPs I meet go, sorry, did I do something rude there? Did I say something rude? I've gotten countless messages from INTPs that asking me like, did I offend you when I did something? Did I do something wrong? And no, usually you didn't. But some things, INTPs get caught in that a lot. INTPs also to some extent share the INTJ fear of being inappropriate and of being like weird or being like judged by the group and by society for being creepy or so on. INTPs, some INFJ fears as well. in a sense that INTPs. How should I talk about ES fears? What do you guys think a fear from extroversion and sensing is? If my INFJ fears come from shadow SI, how do I get over fear? The thing about, in my opinion, TJ functions for an INFJ, introversion and sensing and judging, and introversion and thinking is really like, it's like a zombie function for an INFJ. It is really like what we go into to comfort ourselves and to run away from our fears. I feel like whenever an INFJ gets afraid and runs away and becomes overcome by their insecurities, I think they tend to go into an ISTJ mode in a sense. Like from what I can tell, INFJs may use introversion and sensing to kind of romanticize the past, or to rehearse all lessons that they've learned in the past, and to just go something over and over again. Like we will go over and repeat something over and over again. I noticed that a lot of INFJs, including myself, and keep repeating the same thing over and over. It's like a really weird thing that I noticed that INTJs also have to some extent. Getting stuck on words and thoughts and inner thought. ISTJ is very passive for an INFJ. Like we do it on autopilot without conscious thought. We just do it. It's just steadying. So it's not necessarily a fear as much as it is like this reassuring blast from the past. Why do we do it? I was writing about that a little in the book. I'm going to see if I can find it. Why do we get stuck in habit? I think we get stuck in a habit when we place too strong requirements on ourselves, too strong rules, too strong restrictions, when we're overwhelmed with worries of not being pure enough, of not living up to other people's expectations, when we anchor ourselves too much. Like when we tie ourselves down to the ground, and where our requirements and our prerequisites become too big for us, then I think we are stopped. Like when we make things too hard and too complicated, we just stop moving. That's the typical thing I notice in everyone. When something becomes too complex, people just freeze up. I think when we retreat to games and to things around us. Hi, Frank. Talking Head says, I think I fear losing shit when it comes to SE. In the sense of losing control over my actions and just getting in the grip of SE and breaking something or someone's bones. Exactly. And I can see that. And I see that especially with sensing and judging in the play as well for INFPs and INTPs. For me, I think I lose control when I'm extroverted sensing. I become reckless. And I do stupid shit. And I say stupid shit. And I like act outside my script and against my script in a sense. If I want something very bad, or if I believe something to be true, or if I have a life philosophy to do a certain thing, I think extrovert sensing kind of gets me to go outside that script and to question my own script and to kind of screw it over, like to overwrite everything and go, I'm gonna do this. And that it can definitely feel like losing control when it comes to that. Katie Ryan asks, why do so many people seem to think sensing types can't be as deep as intuitives? A lot of people confuse sensing with autopilot. And I think it's because intuitives tend to associate sensing with autopilot. For us, being sensing is to be in the autopilot. So we assume sensors are always in the autopilot, when in fact sensors are conscious in their use of sensing. They use it and engage in it with rational thought, with conscious awareness. They feel motivated and energetic when they do it. We don't. We feel bored and we feel drained and we feel stressed by it. So we assume they must too, and that they're just stuck in a bad rut. But that's not true, of course. Under what circumstance might an ENTP behave like an ESP, being reactive and totally being in the moment, acting without forethought? The closest normal variation of the ENTP and the ESFP mode is the second. The E. Let's see. The ESTJ. The ENTP in the ESTJ mode. And that is the blue ENTP. ENTPs that are very image concerned and that are very much focused on becoming good at something, and the magicians, like the ENTPs that are the most prone to becoming flashy and skilled and impressive and strong with what they do, are the most common to sometimes resemble ESXPs. In practice, they will more resemble ESTJs, though. But then you can get into the lower ones, but that's much more uncommon. And here also, a lot of people assume sensing and perceiving types are adrenaline chasers, where intuitives and perceivers are not, but that's not really true. The thing is, an ESTP or an ESFP, sensing and perceiving goes with the flow. Sensing and perceiving sees something interesting, sees something shiny, they go for it. ENFPs or ENTPs are offered something like, hey, do you want this? NPs are inclined to say, no, I want that. NPs want to say no and to go somewhere else or to go in the other direction. The thing, like, what can drive an NP to be an adrenaline junkie? Well, it's to when somebody tells you can't do it, or like if you want to get an NP to do something, tell them they can't do it. Tell them it's not okay and they're not allowed, and they will do it. Tell an ESTP to do it and push them to do it, and they will do it, and they will try it out. So it's really about how to motivate them and how to get them to do it. INTJ careers. Yeah, science is good. It's a good career for an INTJ. Academics pursuits, especially technical subjects. Engineering, really common for INTJs. Economics, law, acting. Acting is also quite common for an INTJ. And what else? Infinite INTJs are in engineering, says Matt. Yes, I noticed that too. If I get pushed into exciting things, I generally enjoy them, even if I wouldn't have done them myself. And that's also like as an IN type, I think we're okay with distance. We can think of jumping a class, a cliff, or skydiving, but we don't necessarily initiate doing it. Where an ENTP sees an advertisement for skydiving and sees a sale and goes, "Hey, that's interesting. I could try that out, and that could work. Maybe I could find something." Like they actually see if they can try it out and what would happen, and they go into the scenario. If I skydive, then that and that and that must happen. I must do this, and I must get this gear, and I must. So they look at the whole chain of events. Politics, sure. There are quite a few INTJs in politics. Staring at a wall can be fun when you have NI to entertain your thoughts. That reminds me of a scene in Big Bang Theory where Sheldon and Raj uh, work together, and they're trying to figure out this theory, and they're going into it, and they're putting on Eye of the Tiger, and it's like dut, 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 dut. And all this time they're staring at the whiteboard, and they're going, hmm. For a few minutes, they're just going, hmm. And that's how my life feels sometimes. All I do is stare at whiteboards and I go, hmm. I'm thinking and thinking and thinking. Gish Girl, an ENFP, says she would never go skydiving. And of course, I don't think a lot of ENFPs are actually adrenaline junkies. How does an ENFP experience skydiving in comparison to an ESFP? Go into and enjoy life and experiences and things when there are connections to be made, and then there are patterns to explore, and when there are things to investigate and try out. ENs go in and they go, I can see that pattern and I can see that happening, and I can maybe have that experience from this, and they plan out and they come up with things, and they have use of the EN function. And ES is boring in itself. They don't give a damn about actually like the actual experience, unless it can be tied into and used to draw connections and to learn things. Gish Girl is a lot more brave than she usually says. She's done a lot of crazy things in her life. But I think a lot of ENs and ENPs have a much more casual idea of what's brave and what it means to be brave than sensors do. And sensors are usually more physically inclined, where intuitives are more mentally inclined. So we challenge ourselves differently there. Rebecca, I was looking at an INFP mountain climber just recently. She was a mountain climber, and she was a teacher who did like guiding tours for people. So I thought it was really cool to look at. And I can see how an INFP would love that. How long have we been on? When did I start? Okay, maybe 45 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago. We are 31 people here, and it's awesome. We are so many. Like the live streams so far have been awesome to look at. So fun. We've been so many people. How do we get so many people in here? How do I round this off? Right. I want to show you guys something. I wonder if I can do it in a good way. Maybe I can. Okay, so what do I want to do? Um, I want to talk about the main quests, side quests, requirements, and final objectives. So I'm writing a book about Enneagram openings. I'm writing about all the Enneagram types. I'm writing about Carl Jung's archetypes, the different archetypes out there. I'm writing about the caregiver, the innocent, the performer, and I'm tying them to various Enneagram types. And I'm talking about Enneagram blocks. And what I'm working on right now is, I can see if I can get it up. Final objective. Okay, here it is. There are 4 in particular main quests, and they tie into your dominant color. So as you might have known, there is a subtype test on my website: red, green, blue, yellow subtypes. Red subtypes are driven by chivalry. Yellow subtypes are driven by search for creative pursuits, for learning and for experience and for self-reflection. Blue types are driven by skill and ability and becoming reputable and known for their skills and their abilities. Green types are driven by ambition and resourcefulness and taking action towards what they want to do. And for the blue type, the main quest is to gain skill and knowledge. For the yellow type, it is to create something of value, whether it is in love, like to pass on knowledge to other people, or whether it is to create art or things like that. To do something good for the world. And the green type wants to be someone of high reputation. Each of them has a different side quest. The red type has the side quest to bring change and to challenge power and to challenge power dynamics and establishment in some way. The red type has a requirement they must live up to. They must, to some extent, try not to be something they're not. They must try to be good in their everyday life. To some extent, they live by this condition, like this outer pressure, in a sense. This restraint, this seatbelt that tells them, don't do something, don't think you are somebody, do something good, but don't think you are somebody for doing it. Like, red types want to do good deeds for the world. Like, they're caregiving, they're rebels, they're people that are trying their best to, they have like this fear of like thinking they are something for doing the right thing. They don't want to think they are something or that they've done something right. To just do it without feeling good about it for themselves. The green type has the side quest of impressing and other people and of being admired by other people whenever they can. Like, typically the main quest is to become to gain high reputation, and the side quest in that can be to get other people around you to be impressed by you, to feel entertained by you, and to feel, wow, this person is amazing. Someone who pursues power wants to constantly live by the restraint and tries to live by the restraint of trying to be pure and to remain pure in their power, to remain innocent and to seem like a good person in the eyes of the public. Who desires to create something of value has the side quest of celebrating things other people create and celebrating good ideas and inventions and innovation and loving and appreciating people around you in some way. People have the restraint on themselves to gain knowledge and wisdom about the things you have come to create. Red types, oh sorry, I should say blue types have the main quest to gain skill and knowledge. Their side quest is to see great sights and to discover amazing things. Blue types have the requirement to live by and to adhere to the principles of the system, of their school, of their academic institution, or of the workplace they live under. They must adhere to what the workplace says is right and wrong and try to protect and to ensure this. I'm noticing that not only do yellow types and the different colors have different core goals, side quests, they have different restraints, and they have different final objectives. And the final objective can be to become loved for what you do, to gain power and recognition for your work, to become to allow yourself a break and to relax. Like the green types struggle a lot to allow themselves a breathing stop and time to relax and to enjoy the good things in life. They keep on thinking they have to work, and to do work harder and harder. Types want to become loved for what they do. And yeah, there's an archetype test, and yeah, there's subtype test, and what it all boils down to is this. Let me bring up my own beautiful face for a second. Here we go. I'm back. My current goal, my end goal before I finalize this book is to write about how each cognitive function engages in these main quests, side quests, requirements, and final objectives. And how your goal in aligning all of these, in meeting the demands of your main quest, in living up to and meeting the final objective, in living by and adhering to these restraints, and in following the side quest, it's about aligning your cognitive functions, all your 4 dominant cognitive functions, and connecting to yourself and finding balance. And then you'll be going from being just a creator or just a rebel or just an average Joe to aligning different personas in yourself and unlocking the different personas and enneagrams and being able to use them when you need them. One of the goals that I see. Sometimes you'll feel restricted by your persona or your mask, and even if it's a valuable and honorable goal to create new things or to rule and to have power, there's important to sometimes take a moment to step out of that role and to realize you are bigger than that, you have more potential than that, more than just that archetype presents to you. So I find that it's about not getting too stuck in it, and it's about relieving also the core block of each enneagram type, finding a way to respond to that rebel fear of being a part of the status quo, finding a way to respond to that creator fear of having your work discarded or destroyed by others, that sage fear of being lied to or being duped or misled somehow. So that's the book. So in a few days that will be up, and it will be like $5 to $7 maybe or something like that. So it's just a short 50 to 70 page excerpt, and I do recommend you all to get it if you want to learn more about the Enneagram, about Jung's archetypes, and about how the cognitive functions fit together with it. So, did this chat just die? Did I kill you all already? Okay. So it's time for me to start rounding off now. It's been a pleasure having you all here. I've got to return to the book. I still feel this huge tingle in my fingers to keep on writing. I've been writing all day. I've been writing all night. I've been writing nonstop and having a great time. I'm really hyped about this book. Yeah, it's Karen. They actually say after about 45 to 50 minutes, most people stop listening. They can't take in anymore. So it's my cue. It's time to leave. It's time to go. Thank you all for joining up. Thank you all for being here. I don't know exactly when my next stream will be. Let me see. I have a birthday party on Friday for someone, and yeah, no, sorry, I don't have a plan yet, but there will probably be one next week. Yeah, thank you all for joining up. Thank you all for being here. This is me tuning out. And if you haven't already, I want to recommend to you to check out G. I've been watching some of his videos lately, and he has such a fun channel if you're a nerd. He connects MBTI and cognitive functions to various RPG elements and game theory and all kinds of things. So it's really fun if you were into learning more about that. I'll link that. I'll also link the Discord. Here's the Discord. It's our forum. So anyone can join up and chat and discuss the live stream after it finishes. And finally, on my website, there's a forum and there's tons of good material and all kinds of stuff.